this morning in New York City that they are now imposing. What are they doing? Is it passports for all unvaccinated in New York City?
It's for unvaccinated?
For all yeah. Let's show the clip from Mayor de Blasio.
Yeah,
you guys have that?
He says it.
Okay, let's bring up the clip from Mayor de Blasio.
We in New York City have decided to use a preemptive strike to really do something bold to stop the further growth of COVID and the dangers it's causing to all of us. So as of today, we're going to announce a first-in-the-nation measure. Our health commissioner will announce
a vaccine
mandate for private sector employers across the board.
Public and private
sector employers.
I thought it was only going to be 100 employees or more, remember?
By this vaccine mandate as of December 27th. We're going to have some other measures as well to really focus on maximizing vaccination quickly so we can get ahead of Omicron and all the other challenges we're facing right now.
Yeah, and what's really scary about that, and we'll go back to the Omicron variant in a second, but think about this, kids 5 to 11 have to have at least one shot to enter business.
No, absolutely go fuck yourself. I am so sorry for saying that. Listen, I apologize right now. That's evil.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is absolutely evil. You're forcing children. You are forcing children to be back. This is not science. And by the way, this is all done under the guise of what? The Omicron variant. The Omicron variant. The Omicron variant. We have to be afraid of the Omicron variant. Well, guess what? You're not following the science. So this is New York now, but they're following the lead of places like. Let me just clarify one thing here. This is why it matters when we point to Europe or we point to Australia. Do you doubt for a second? Genuine question. You guys can comment. Do you doubt for a second that if there weren't Republicans or conservatives or liberty-loving Americans standing in the way, that Democrats right now in this country wouldn't have us do exactly what Europe and Australia has done? If they had their way, unfettered, Europe would be us. We would be Australia. Do you doubt that for a second? I just want to make that clear, because guess what they're doing in Germany? Oh, they act up again. Those Germans, better keep your eye on those folks. Now they're imposing major restrictions on anyone in their population who's unvaccinated. I think we have a clip of Prime Minister Portgrein Merkel.
Wir werden bundesweit einen Zugang zu Einrichtungen und Veranstaltungen der Kultur- und Freizeitgestaltung unabhängig von der Inzidenz nur für Geimpfte ermöglichen. Es kann ergänzend auch ein Test noch einmal 2G+ genannt gefordert werden. Die 2G-Regeln werden auch auf den Einzelhandel ausgeweitet. Ausgenommen sind die Geschäfte des täglichen Bedarfs.
So some other new German guidelines include, for people who are listening on audio, we had subtitles
there. A train ride.
Unvaccinated people will be limited to meetings with their own household and only two other people. You will not ask questions. Night. And we actually have some disturbing footage, of course. This isn't the first time of German authorities going door to door looking for the unvaccinated. Well, I guess we can't blame them. It's just the Germans preserving their traditions and culture.
I guess so. Well, they had to get one shot or the other.
Yep. 6 million unvaccinated, just to be.
I think they'll say 6 million, but we both know it'll be closer to 600,000.
I don't know what. I don't agree with that. Just stop. 9. So we joke about this, but here I spoke with this with Dr. Jordan Peterson. The Nazis, keep in mind, they didn't just come in and say, "Look, we are going to go door to door because we don't. Hey, everybody, we don't like Jews, right?
No.
We have the problem with the Jews. People didn't say, "Oh yeah, let's get rid of." That's not how it happened. What did they do? They began to drive a wedge through a multitude of ways, of course, but a big one. They've always used infectious diseases to other people. And I don't mean other people in that you don't provide a racially segregated safe space at Mizzou. I mean othering people in the sense that you make them seem dirty, filthy, subhuman, people who should not be a part of society. The Nazis did label Jews' disease with typhus, lice, all of this as an excuse to go door to door and persecute them and create ghettos. A huge precursor was, we can't stop the fact that they're dirty. The Juden are dirty. Do you want to get dirty like the Juden?
Right. No, so one of the things they did, they dehumanized them and they said they are not doing their part for Germany. Listen to this. This might sound familiar. They are the reason that our economy is not recovering as fast as it could.
Yep. Right.
Does that sound familiar to anybody? Do you understand why that freaks us out when we hear the government saying, "Oh, it's the unvaccinated"? If it weren't for them,
you're talking about the Jews.
Right. Yeah. That's
the reason the economy is not recovering.
Well, that's what your guy said.
Right. But you're saying
Charlie Chaplin.
What does he say now?
Well, it's pretty much we stole your line.
Well, who's me? What line?
Well, the United States stole your line. We just replaced Jews with unvaccinated.
Wait. So the Jews now in the United States are the reason for no economic recovery?
You see, I think you're hearing what you want to hear.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but that's not what I'm saying.
What are you saying? Why is the economy in the Scheißen?
It's because of the unvaccinated, according to the U.S. government.
Oh, okay. So I understand. So now we're saying unvaccinated. Wink.
No.
Juden?
No, not. Juden? No.
I think he means Juden.
That's not.
It appears that no Jews are vaccinated.
Well, no, I understand where Gerald is coming from. Mr. Blonde Hair, Blue Eyes. Yes, it's unvaccinated. That's right.
No. That's not what I said.
Do you have some unvaccinated in your attic? Just wait till they come down, dip their pinky in a bowl of porridge.
You are not listening.
It's always.
Oh, yes, the diary of unvaccinated.
Not surprised.
You see, I thought this was going to go differently.
How many unvaccinated does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Oh, boy.
I'm not going to finish that.
Yeah.
So,
It's always been health, though. Health has always been the thing they use.
Always been health.
It controls society. So just if you ever question if we're getting dumber, we're going backwards.
Well, it's not. Here's something else. It's not only health. It's your individual health, right? Or someone else affecting everybody else's health. It's not really about individual health. It's always under the guise of, hey, the Jews are going to affect all of your health.
Everything,
right?
yeah.
Right. It's, hey, the unvaccinated are going to affect the health of everybody. Well, hold on a second. Wait a second. How does my health affect you if you're vaccinated? Well, because I could still get it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess then the vaccine doesn't work. Well, but no, if I'm vaccinated, there's very little chance that I end up sick or in the hospital. Well, then you shouldn't care that I'm unvaccinated. But you have to get vaccinated. Why? Because I could get it.
We're a culture that picks sexual partners by swiping right on a phone.
Yes.
Think about that.
Yes.
Like, and all of a sudden we care about health?
Right.
Where have you been the last 20 years?
For crying out loud, Brian Stelter. I was trying to think. Brian Stelter?
Is it Brian?
Henry? Brian Stelter.
Brian's.
Who's the Stelter's orchestra?
Do you have a mental thing?
I just totally forgot. The point is, he looks at toilet seats prepared for the show.
Absolutely. And by the way, listen, you don't assume.
I'm getting my Stelters mixed up.
You really are. It's hard. Don't assume that the Germans were any more likely to do this than any culture. Right?
Well, let's
they weren't.
Assume a little.
They're not. No. They weren't. They maybe were willing to go to war and start some stuff in Europe. They've done that several dozen times. It's true. But don't assume that. You've got to understand that if the government has its way in these situations, they will turn you into the person that you think is the worst person on the planet, and you won't even know it. German citizens didn't necessarily know it at the time.
That's a good point. You know what they say about assumptions? They make an ass out of you, and we must kill the Juden.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Boom. What's good, bro? I don't know what the hell I'm doing, man. I'm just trying some shit real quick.
My magical friends in TV land. What a great show we have in store for you. Look who's here. Dana Perino. Yeah, her new puppy Percy has been on the channel so much you'd think he's got a book out. I wonder what Percy could be thinking.
I love my mom, but I really just want to stay home and chew on stuff behind her back. If I would have known I was going to get dragged around all day, I would have stayed with that homeless guy. At least he sticks to one corner.
Also, Cat's here. It's Friday, so you know what that means. For 1 hour, your medicine cabinet is safe. Now, tonight's monologue is surprise about the
This
media.
is the last
The
time.
angle is how stupid they are. I'm nothing if not unpredictable, but their stupidity is so rich, Joe Biden wants to tax it. Case in
I
point,
do
check out
anything
this
that's not on
from
camera,
this
Joe.
lonely hack from the Daily Beast.
Well, I got one more thing to do after this. I gotta paint some shit on this cane, and then I have to do some stuff on a couple pair of gloves. But this is the last time I do any kind of projects that aren't on a canvas. This isn't my type of thing. I don't really enjoy doing this. I'm literally doing it for the money, and because it's for a pretty good friend of mine. He got lucky, because I don't give a fuck if you're a friend or not. Anybody else ask me to paint some shit that's not on a canvas or a wall, like a mural or something, I ain't doing that shit. Oh man, you think you can I don't know, I still might customize some sneakers. And I really did that just for the money thing out of it, just to make some dollars doing like little commissions like that, but I don't even like customizing sneakers, honestly, yo. I don't like doing that shit. I can do it, but I don't like to do it. So now, I'm stuck doing a bunch of like weird projects that aren't really like my cup of tea. I gotta paint this cane. Then I gotta paint some fucking gloves. Alright. So the stick had like, you see them big ass cracks in there? So I tried to pack it, fill it in a little bit. All right. Yo, what up? Just trying to pack this crack. Which is a weird selection of words. You know what I'm saying? Pack this crack. That can be something a drug dealer or a porn star would say. Why can I get this shit to go in there? Oh my god. All right. Pack this crack, nigga. So now I need glue, which is here. Alright, so first I packed the crack. Now I glued the crack. Feel like I'm over here doing some damn coffee. Alright. It's packed and glued. Now, let's fuck this shit up real bad, yo. Let's fuck it all the way up. God damn it, I don't give a damn. Let's see. I don't know how this is gonna work.
If God exists, then theism would be true, and if someone lacks belief in that God, then theism would be true.
Yeah, that's true. Both would be true. Yeah. Like you're at a certain position of that redefinition.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to understand how ridiculous these sound right now, because they just simply don't understand this conversation. And I really don't think that they should be trying to tell people about what atheists believe or don't believe while not understanding the conversation that they're even having. What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? Oh shit, I almost dropped my bag. It's not open yet. So tonight, though, we are going to be taking a look at a video where a couple of creationists sit down and basically try to explain atheism. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily for atheists or if it's for religious people that just apparently have never heard of atheists or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure all the Skeptic Mafia members can tell you that it's pretty dumb as fuck video with these two clueless creations trying to talk shit about atheism.
What is atheism? A lack of a belief in God, or belief that no God exists?
This is a bit of false dichotomy starting right off the bat, so kudos to you for getting it wrong right out the gate. Lack of faith could be a possible definition that people use. Really, it's just a non-belief in a deity. It's just simply not believing in your bullshit claims. Now, there are hard atheists or Gnostic atheists that go the extra mile and say that God definitely doesn't exist, and that's fine. I don't feel like I have any kind of good argument to support that particular position. That's why I go the more agnostic atheist route, and I say that I don't know whether or not a God exists, but I just don't believe in a God. I kind of feel like the way that you painted it is a bit black and white, and so it kind of seems like you're committing a false dichotomy fallacy right out the gate.
Hi there, I'm Keaton Halley, and joining me today on the program is Dr. Jonathan Sarfati.
G'day, everyone.
Let's talk about this question of the definition of atheism. In the last, I think it's maybe a decade or so, a lot of atheists have been part of a movement to sort of redefine the term. Why don't you tell us historically what has it meant and what's the definition that they're now giving?
Well, you can go to philosophical dictionaries of not that long ago, and they would say that atheism affirms the non-existence of God as an active disbelief, an active belief in God's non-existence. But now you've got some revisionism going on saying that atheism is just a lack of belief in God. That's quite a big difference.
It's not revisionism. I feel like this is yet another fallacy. You know, what I really need to do up on my Stream Deck is a fallacy counter. This is not revisionist history whatsoever. This would be like a fallacy of tradition or an appeal to tradition. He's saying traditionally when people talk about atheism, they're talking about the positive claim that God does not exist, or God or gods. What he's appealing to is a very old definition or a very old understanding of this entire conversation. To suggest that the conversation is not going to evolve over time, or people aren't going to come into different ways to view atheism on the whole, it's just fallacious as fuck. Because that's not how our language works. That's not how anything has ever worked. Being a Christian has changed a lot over time. So to say, oh, I'm a Christian now means something drastically different than it did 1,000 years ago. So to suggest that these terms have to stay in these very strict definitions is just wrong. And it's definitely the wrong way to go about arguing your point here. And I wouldn't say that presently it's just a lack of belief. There's a lot more nuance to the subject of atheism in general. Some people see it as just a lack of belief in a God. Other people see it as a non-belief in a deity figure, or deity or deities. Some people take the more Gnostic route of asserting that God doesn't exist. Even the nuanced situation of getting into specific definitions of God, because while I'm an agnostic atheist on the deity question in general, I'm very Gnostic about particular definitions, like Yahweh or Allah or any definition of God that we currently have. I would say that I'm Gnostic about those particular gods, or I'm a hard atheist about those gods. I definitely can assert that those gods do not exist, and I can support my positive claim that they don't exist with evidence. The way that they're framing this right out the gate is just totally ignoring the nuances of the conversation. And so they're starting out on a bad foot, and they're trying to lead people down a very particular path in which they've constructed this narrative around.
Why do you think the reason for the change?
Because they kept on losing arguments. Well, I mean, the thing is, if it's the usual definition, then the burden of proof is on them to show their conclusion is right. But if they just say it's a lack of belief, then they try to shift the burden of proof onto us to give positive evidence while they don't give any evidence for their own position.
As far as atheism goes, I don't have to give any kind of evidence for your God's non-existence. You are the one making the positive claim, thus making you the one that has to show how your God definitely does exist, preferably with evidence, not necessarily arguments, but just give me good evidence to suggest that a God does exist. And that just gets you to this ambiguous God deity. It doesn't actually get you to your specific definition of God. The neutral position is a secular position where you have no concern about whether or not God exists. And then, if you want to assert that a God exists, you have to provide evidence for it. So you stay in this secular position, or this very atheistic position of just not believing in a God, having a non-belief in a deity. We've never had the burden of proof, at least in the modern version of this conversation. Now, I can't really speak to whether or not atheists in the past kept losing arguments, but considering that you're creationists and you think that atheists lose the argument every single time, no matter what, just because they are atheists, doesn't really seem to matter whether or not they previously lost all of their arguments, because according to you, we are still losing the arguments. So that just seems like a non-point, kind of like just a personal jab at atheists there. Kind of petty, if you ask me. Casey said, bitch.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That it seems almost like a move, a shifting of the goalpost to avoid having to actually give reasons for the view that they hold, which of course many of them do believe that God doesn't exist. This is why they argue that way in debates and write books on the subject and so forth.
Well, hold on. We have to be very specific here, because I would hazard to guess that most atheists are saying that your particular God doesn't exist. Most of the time when these conversations happen, we're not talking about this ambiguous God figure, right? This ambiguous deity. We're talking about specific definitions. Whenever like an atheist and a Christian are discussing whether or not God exists, it's never really the question of whether or not an ambiguous God deity exists, like just in general. It's always a very specific definition. So I feel like without specifying that you're talking about just a supernatural deity, then we're more or less going to be on the playing field of specific definitions. Most atheists would say, I don't believe in a God because he hasn't been proven to exist, and I don't know whether or not a God does exist. He could exist, he could not exist. We just simply don't know, but I don't believe he does. It's a you have to understand the nuances of this conversation. If you leave them out when you're talking about it in this kind of fashion, it makes it seem like you're purposefully leading people down a specific path you've already crafted a narrative for.
Yeah, they've got a lot of trouble to go to just for a lack of belief. I mean, I give reasons for lack of belief in Santa Claus or green cheese on the moon or whatever it is. I mean, the thing is, I mean, they used to talk about agnosticism, which is I don't know, or strong agnosticism, which is no one can know, which is what T.H. Huxley, Darwin's bulldog, invented that term, and that's how he meant to use it.
Yeah, so there was already a term in existence for somebody who lacks belief in God. Agnosticism better fits that bill. Right. Whereas now it's almost like we don't have a word for someone who denies God's existence.
Oh, I can think of words like...
We haven't replaced agnosticism. I like how they're talking about knowledge and belief as if they're the same thing. Knowledge should inform your beliefs, but they are different things to talk about. So when I say I don't believe in a God, that doesn't mean that I know that a God doesn't exist or that I'm making some kind of positive claim that he doesn't exist. I'm just saying that I don't believe in a God. And I would also classify agnostics as being in the atheist category, just myself personally, although I'm not going to force that label on anybody. Agnostics themselves don't believe in a God. I would say that puts them in the atheist category, but that's why I don both of the labels, agnostic, atheist, because specifically my position is I don't know whether or not a God exists, but I don't believe that he does. Agnostic, atheist, that label perfectly describes my position on God in general. To say that agnostic is just somebody that lacks a belief in it is just misapplying the label. Talking about the pure agnostic position is somebody that just doesn't know what they believe. At least that's how it seems to be colloquially used. In general, you can be agnostic about anything. Agnostic just speaks about your knowledge about a subject. Do I know that a God exists? No. Do I know that a meteorite's not going to destroy my apartment? I don't know that it won't, but I don't believe that that will happen. So you have to understand the nuances between knowledge and belief. And these guys seem to be confusing the two.
Anti-theist, someone who's actually against the idea of theism, that's anti-theism, or I'd actually say misotheism. I wasn't the one who invented that, unfortunately. I did think of it independently.
What does that one mean?
That means God hatred.
Okay.
God hates us. I've also used the word atheopath, pathological promotion of atheism and hatred of theism.
If you hate God, then you're not an atheist, because atheists don't hate God because we don't believe in a God to hate, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to say that atheists are misotheists or anything like that. There are misotheists out there, somebody that actively hates God. I would doubt that they would say that they're atheists. I don't know any, so maybe I'm wrong. I've looked up atheopath to see if it's an actual word. It's not. It's not in a dictionary or anything like that, which doesn't mean that it can't be, I guess, created and put into a dictionary. But the only places that I've seen atheopath published on the internet, the only place you can find atheopath is on creationist websites who are trying to portray atheists, at least the atheists that are very vocal about not believing in a God and fight against creationists, as well as religious people that want to push their agenda through the government or in any other kind of way. Those are atheopaths to them. People that pathologically don't believe in a God, tell everybody about it, and fight against them and their crazy, batshit insane ideas. But it kind of seems to me like whoever this has not actually researched this topic area. Because he would have come into agnostic, gnostic, or hard and soft, because there's both of those flavors of theist and atheist exist. When I was figuring out what I did or didn't believe, one of the first things that I came across was Gnostic and agnostic, hard and soft atheism. I would say that most Christians fall in the Gnostic or hard theist category, while most atheists seem to fall in the soft or agnostic atheist column. I don't know why he's making up terms in order to try to classify atheists as agnostic or Gnostic. We've already got labels for this. You don't need to make up bullshit words.
Yeah, all right. Okay, well, so fair enough. Of course, most atheists wouldn't describe themselves in that way, so although I have heard some use the term anti-theist of themselves.
I think Lawrence Krauss is one of those, the cosmologist, cosmogonist. Yeah, I think he says he's an anti-theist, but it's the atheist's own fault for trying to redefine when they're losing, and therefore what choice we have but to try and define, what choice we have but to try and find a word that describes what we're dealing with.
Yeah, good point.
You know, I could say the same bullshit about Christians. Trying to juggle all the different denominations and what you do and do not believe are required to get into heaven is just fucking frustrating. If I have to learn the 62,000 different denominations that make up Christianity, I'm sure that you can bear to understand the 3 or 4 different types of atheists that exist.
Well, it seems to me that if you abandon the traditional definition of atheism, then you've got this problem where, ironically, almost theism and atheism could both be true at the same time.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it?
Because the new definition doesn't refer to belief in God per se, but just to the sort of psychological state of the so-called atheist.
You have to understand how ridiculous you sound right now. Yes, how most atheists use the label atheism or atheist just refers to what they do or do not believe. This would be the same case as anybody else that's used a label in a similar manner. We're not using the label to indicate what is true about reality. We're using the label to describe us, what we believe. The fact that they don't grasp what the label is actually doing is astonishing itself.
So what I mean, belief. There could be a God, but I just like belief in the God.
Yeah, exactly. So, of course, if God exists, then theism would be true. And if someone lacks belief in that God, then atheism would be true.
Yeah, that's true. Both could be true. So reduct your ad absurdum position of that redefinition.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't really understand what in the fuck they just said. It just kind of seemed like a whole bunch of fucking word salad because they just simply don't understand this conversation. And I really don't think that they should be trying to tell people about what atheists believe or don't believe while not understanding the conversation that they're even having.
The atheists have to make certain assumptions. They have certain propositions they have to believe. They have to believe that something can come into existence from nothing.
Yeah.
They got no proof or evidence or even any evidence as a rational position to hold that something can come from nothing uncaused, because if it doesn't exist, it can't cause anything. Mm-hmm. Can't do anything. It can't cause anything.
Okay, so this is a common thing. Apologists like this will often extend atheism into subject areas that atheism is just simply not concerned with. Atheism and theism, for that matter, are only concerned with whether or not you believe in a God. It has nothing to do with the beginning of the universe. But just because you don't understand our argument for what happened at the beginning of the universe, it doesn't mean anything for atheism in general, because atheism is just talking about what a person doesn't believe. But just because this guy doesn't understand that the scientific explanation for the inflation of the universe being that a quantum scalar field went from a false vacuum state to a true vacuum state, and that in turn released an immense amount of energy which caused the universe to inflate near instantaneously and continue inflating after that. The energy that filled this little bubble, if you will, it eventually transformed into a kind of energy that would eventually turn into the matter that we have today. Just because he doesn't understand that does not automatically mean that his God exists, or that a God in general exists. That's besides the point of whether or not this relates to atheism, because it doesn't.
I think what you're saying basically is that although atheists are now claiming that they merely lack belief, they actually do positively affirm a number of propositions about how the universe and living things came to be and so forth.
They had no evidence for the idea that life came from non-living chemicals. That's the topic of another podcast. It's whatsoever. In fact, the evidence is very much against it, but they have to believe it because of their belief system. That's a positive thing they have to believe, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not a positive thing that you have to believe. In fact, you can be a theistic evolutionist. You can definitely be that. I feel like here he's conflating abiogenesis with evolution, though, because they're creation ministry, so obviously they're going to disregard evolution in general. But again, none of this has any kind of bearing on atheism. In this particular section, they talked about how atheists make a number of claims about things. This is completely separate from the question of whether or not God exists. While we do have a scientific explanation for the inflation of the universe, that does not say anything about whether or not a God exists. God could have been the one that bumped the quantum scalar field with his tiny dick and shoved it into the true vacuum state. He probably grew the glory just for us, honey. The glory of his cock. He nudged it forward with the tip of his dick, just the tip. And he could have created the entire, universe that way. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what caused this quantum scalar field to fluctuate. As far as I can tell in quantum mechanics, you don't necessarily need a cause for it to happen. But ultimately, I don't know. So me being able to explain the inflation of the universe to you does not say anything about whether or not a God exists. What it does say is something about whether or not your particular definition of God exists. And that would be an argument that I would bring up to show you that your particular God doesn't exist.
Exactly. It opens them up then to the criticisms that creationists and others make of their worldview commitments.
And it is a worldview commitment. Makes no mistake about that.
Yeah.
Atheism is not a worldview. I'm just saying, it's a description of what you don't believe. And I could say that I'm a Bigfootist. If there were, which there are romantic novels about Bigfoot, but if there was a religion devoted to Bigfoot where its adherents numbered in the millions and it was seen as weird not to believe in Bigfoot, I would definitely brandish the title a Bigfootist, or fairies, or leprechauns, or Loch Ness Monster. If you have societies that are primarily centered around whether or not a god exists, then there needs to be a label to describe people that don't do that. It's not that it's a worldview, it's that it's a label for somebody that doesn't believe your bullshit. And that's it. It says nothing else about the rest of reality. Really appreciate you guys, but if you will, leave a like on this video. Just go ahead and smash that like button, and be sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Like I said, appreciate you guys being here. Leave me a comment too. Oh, that's what I meant to say. Leave me a comment. That really helps me out in the algorithm. And otherwise, I guess I'll see you heathens later. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice.
Welcome back. This is the 17th annual Isaac Asimov panel debate, and we've been going strong ever since the year 2000, when an idea surfaced in the hearts and minds of the family of Isaac Asimov, exploring a way for his memory to be preserved in the programs of this institution. And Isaac Asimov was a friend of the American Museum of Natural History. Much of the research for so many of the books that he wrote took place in and around the halls and in our libraries, and so perhaps there's no more fitting tribute to him and to his memory than to keep this celebration going. So thank you for attending. We are also streaming live on the internet, and I'm your host for this evening, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm the Frederick P. Rose Director of the Hayden Planetarium. Just a couple of newsy notes. This year, we sold out in 3 minutes, and it's not a particularly sustainable model. So we're going to have top people looking at how to sort of improve that next year. We don't know how yet, but the least we can do is offer it live streamed on the internet on amnh.org. So I welcome everyone from the internet universe, as well as the universe gathered here. Tonight's topic is the universe a computer simulation? And, yeah. This. Do you want it to be a computer simulation? I mean, this topic is we're gonna you'll see. We've got some highly thoughtful, talented, respected people to weigh in on this. I will introduce them individually, and then we will start the panel. By the way, unlike most debates, where there's point, counterpoint, and an argument is presented and attacked, that's not what's going to happen here. I'm using the word debate loosely. Think of yourself as eavesdropping on scientists at a breakout room in a conference on this topic. So we'll all be sort of arguing with one another, and you're listening in. That's really what's going on here. And you get to see how scientists think. You get to see how arguments are contested. You get to see how resolution arrives, if it arrives at all. So, afterwards we will have a brief time for question and answer before we adjourn before 9 o'clock Eastern time zone, Eastern Daylight Time. So, join me in welcoming my first panelist this evening. He is a professor of philosophy at New York University, where he's also director of the Center for Mind, Brain, and Consciousness, David Chalmers. David, come on out. Hey, record this. Next, we have a nuclear physicist who is a postdoctoral research associate at MIT up in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And let's give a warm welcome to Zohore Davoudi. Zohore. Next, we have someone who's actually no stranger to this panel. This may be his third visit to it. In part, the topic of this year was selected because he brought it up like a couple of years ago. And I said, man, we could do a whole subject on that alone. Let's give a warm welcome back to Jane Sylvester Gates. Another non-first-timer is professor of physics up at Harvard, specialist in nuclear particle physics. Give a warm New York welcome to one of our own, a graduate of Stuyvesant High School, Lisa Randall. There's a friend and colleague, an astrophysicist, also from MIT, who's done some deep thinking about this very subject and has even written a book on the topic. Let's give a warm New York welcome to Max Tegmark.
All right, so I put some varnish on it to see if I can just hold the gold leaf in place. And once that dries, what I'm gonna do next is
we are sort of lit for live streaming, and the intensity of the lights on the stage is such that two of our panelists.
Is that pulling the paint off?
I think they just want to look cool, but they said they need to wear sunglasses for this event, and that's cool. Later on, I might join you. I brought my pair with me as well. If I'm feeling cool, I might do just that. Let me, Zora, I'd like to start with you. No, who should I start with here? Yes, let me start with you, Zora. Can you tell me why this topic interests you? Just in a couple of minutes, just as introduction here.
Sure. So, as Neil said, I'm a theoretical physicist. My interest is in nuclear physics.
Lou, what it do?
My PhD in 2014 from Institute of Nuclear Theory in University of Washington. And the research I was focused on there and at the moment is trying to use the knowledge of the laws of nature, and in particular strong interactions, to start from a bottom-up approach and try to see what comes out in a physical system. And that's actually relevant to why I got interested in the simulation.
Alright, after work stream. Oh shit. I'm gonna be working on this cane for a little while. I got 2 projects of my own to work on, but
researchers in this field of simulating.
I just got finished with that one commission yesterday.
Past few years, we started.
Oh, then I gotta start another commission. I keep forgetting about those gloves. I left them in my car too.
Think about the universe itself.
I could do that.
We've discovered, not simulated. So the way that we actually simulate.
Or I could work on that at work.
It might actually give us hints that the universe itself could be numerical simulations. And then you would then start thinking, well, let's make an assumption that if
I'm about to get up out of here, man.
Scenario is the case, and if that simulation is actually has similarities with what we do in our research, and just drawing parallels between our algorithms and techniques that
I hope this shit turns out pretty good.
Of nature, and making assumption that they are similar, then what?
Really? Nice. That's what's up, guy. Alright, after I finish these last 2 commissions, I'm definitely taking a break from commissions until like, oh, see? Fuck. Yeah, I'm definitely going to take a break from commissions for a while so I can finish up some of my own shit and get some other projects started. For the new year, yo. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll be working on this shit to the end of the fucking year. Or close to it. It's all good, though. People pay not to see my art. What up, Sushi? Let's see. I can at least pick this up. Well, not really. Fuck it, I'll just leave it. I'll leave it there until tomorrow. Alright, I gotta do this cane and do some gloves. Cane and gloves. And then, that's it. Next time, I'm back up off commissions for a while. I gotta varnish 1, 2, 3 paintings and get all 3 of these shipped out in the next couple weeks. Just been busy as fuck, yo. Alright, I'm about to go have a drink and play some video games. Catch y'all next time. Peace. Oh.